Welcome to Doctors of the Baobab, a podcast where we delve into the rich tapestry of experiences, challenges, and triumphs that shape the diverse journey of doctors of African descent in Africa and the diaspora. I'm your host, Dr. Nondumiso Makhunga-Stevenson, a medical doctor, life coach, and founder of Ubuntu Doctor Coaching, dedicated to helping doctors find fulfillment in both their personal and professional lives. On this podcast, we go beyond the white coat to get to know the doctors we admire and respect. Join us as we explore the stories behind the stethoscope, uncovering the humanity behind the medical expertise. Whether it's navigating the complexities of patient care, overcoming personal obstacles, or advocating for change in healthcare systems, each episode promises to inspire, educate, and uplift. So sit back, relax, and prepare to embark on a journey of self-discovery with Doctors of the Baobab. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to today's exclusive interview with a true pioneer in the field of cardiology, a beacon of inspiration both in Africa and beyond. It is my pleasure to introduce Prof. Nqoba Tsabedze, a clinician scientist whose groundbreaking work at Charlotte Maxeke Johannesburg Academic Hospital has not only positioned him as a leader, but also as a thought leader, a role model, and an international expert. Prof. Tsabedze's journey is nothing short of remarkable. A graduate of the esteemed University of the Witwatersrand, he has distinguished himself as a clinician with a relentless dedication to understanding and combating cardiovascular diseases, particularly among the Black population of South Africa. His pursuit of excellence has led him to specialize in internal medicine, earning him a fellowship with the College of Physicians of South Africa and currently pursuing a PhD at his alma mater. At the heart of Prof. Tsabedze's work lies a passion for unraveling the mysteries of cardiology in his local community. His research, fueled by prestigious grants and awards, offers hope for better treatment and prevention strategies in cardiology. But Prof. Tsabedze's impact extends far beyond the consulting room. As a dedicated educator, he's committed to nurturing the next generation of medical professionals, imparting his knowledge and expertise to both undergraduate and postgraduate students. His leadership roles in professional associations underscore his commitment to advancing cardiovascular care in South Africa and beyond. What sets Prof. Tsabedze apart is not just his academic achievements, but his unwavering dedication to serving his community. Once named Intern of the Year during his internship at Chris Hani Baragwanath Hospital, Prof. Tsabedze's early recognition foreshadows his future success. Despite lucrative opportunities in the private sector, he's chosen to devote himself to the public sector where his work directly impacts the lives of those most in need. His decision is a testament to his values and serves as an inspiration to others in the field. In 2017, he was named one of the Mail and Guardian's top 200 young South Africans, a recognition which further solidifies his status as a rising star in his field. Beyond his professional endeavors, Prof. Tsabedze finds joy in travel, in jogging, and most importantly, spending time with his family. His holistic approach to life reflects a deep-rooted commitment to balance and well-being. So, listeners of Doctors of the Baobab, join me today as we delve into the mind of a true visionary, a leader whose work transcends borders and whose passion drives him to make a difference, one heartbeat at a time. Welcome, Prof. Nqoba Tsabedze, to Doctors of the Baobab.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure and an honor to grace this podcast, and looking forward to share my journey.
Excellent. And we're so excited to have you. And maybe for the audience out there, I do have a disclaimer. I have at a point interacted very closely with Prof. Tsabedze in some of my previous professional roles. And maybe that's a good place to start, Prof, because please forgive me for this. I hope you don't take it the wrong way. But on my phone, I have you as Professor Black Excellence. And that is from the time that I worked with you. And of course, when we talk about Black excellence, in my mind, the reason I put that was really based on my experience of you, where you really exuded this sense of high level of achievement, success, ability, and so forth and so forth. But I know, of course, people do have a challenge with the term Black excellence because it implies and feeds into the idea of respectability politics. But we won't go into that. I'm just sharing my reasons why I put that down and what informed that. Would you say that's a true characterization of you? Is that how you would look at yourself? What does it mean for you, Black excellence?
Yeah, I think for me, it's all about showing up, putting your best foot forward all the time. And in terms of where opportunities weren't available or accessible to people of my genre in the past, now being made accessible and available, I realize that I am an ambassador. So it's not just about me, but the impression that I leave sets the tone for the next individual, generation, key opinion leader, academic of my genre, in terms of this is the standard and the bar that we've seen and we know it's capable, and hopefully again opening doors, changing perceptions or stigma that may have tarnished or have been portrayed, to say this is what we expect. But when you show up and set a very high standard and give 100%, those who may have not had that perception or thought about you, it immediately changes what they're thinking. And so that's, for me, is important, especially when you realize and you go to some meetings and venues where you find yourself you're the only one of color or only one. Also with my challenge, not just like the color, but also it was my age, when sometimes I found, will everyone respect and receive me well? And so it was important that I always demonstrate that I can deliver, I can do the work, and I can do it well.
Yeah, and that's exactly why you are listed as Professor Black Excellence in my phone. Your dedication and commitment to doing your very best. That was the sense one got working with you. And I appreciate the sentiments that you're sharing, because a lot of us as Black professionals feel that weight of having to be excellent in everything that you do, even in leadership positions, that you have to excel. But I wonder if anything in your childhood might have informed that. Were you always that child? So if we go back now to your upbringing, well, how was Prof Black Excellence as a child? Was he also somebody who was really doing his best and showing up and showing out?
Yeah, so I think as a child growing up, I come from a family of 9 boys, and I've got a twin brother. So we're the last borns. Growing up, I think having a twin, naturally, there's always this competitiveness, desire to do well. In fact, my father used to intentionally set us up for competitiveness. For example, he wouldn't buy 2 bicycles or 2, in those days it was TV games, it was not PlayStations and all of that. And he'd say, whoever does well in school will be the custodian. Of course, we share, but you are the custodian. So should we be in a quarrel and I decide I'm not playing anymore, then I take my bike or I take my TV game, and that's that. So naturally, one knew that you have to do well to excel. But the real turning point for me was actually, I remember very clearly, it was in I think it was grade 3, standard 2, somewhere there. And I was a very average student then, I think. And what the school used to do was that at the end of the year, the top 5 achievers in each class had the privilege of going to select books, academic books that they would be awarded to them. So one book each during the end of year academic ceremony. And for the first time, it bothered me that why are these 5 getting books and I'm not getting a book? And then I remember we got these water gun toys, like pistols, and I was very much unimpressed. And I vowed to myself that no, next year I'm getting a book. And it became a personal drive. And in fact, by the time I was in grade 5, I remember my school teacher, Mr. Kalis, he was even saying, yeah, and of course I'm with my twin brother in class, that yeah, one of the Tsabedze boys going to be the Minister of Health, So already I think that just put one on a trajectory. And I think at that time, going forward, I never had my parents, they didn't need to push or motivate. I considered myself, I'm in the running for top achiever in the class, and that was that. In fact, I remember in the primary school I went in, they used to publish the grade 7 results in the local newspaper, and we had done well. And in fact, even in my matric year, in our class, I got the top marks for that year for the matric achievement. So really from that light bulb moment in grade 3, standard 2, there was just this desire that I want to do well. I also want to be recognized. I want to receive books rather than get toy guns. And naturally, with that commitment and hard work, became a self-driving engine that just continued to propel me from primary school to high school and even coming to university. That just became the standard, that this is what we do. We work hard, we excel, we get good grades. And if I wouldn't get good grades, there's a sense of, what am I not doing right? Where have I not applied myself fully? What can I improve? Etc. So it's always about self-reflection. And I always had an internal locus of control where I say, the ball is in my court. This is what I've achieved now. How do I improve? So yeah, that's really, I don't know if that gives you more insights, but those are the driving forces that allowed me, since at a very young age, just to really be someone who is dedicated, committed, and hardworking.
So now you get into medical school, which is full of people like yourself, top achievers, which can be a little bit challenging sometimes for the ego. How was your experience of medical school with other competitive people who are also top achievers?
It was very inspiring, actually, because I realized, sometimes when you are in an environment where you feel you are at the top of your game and there's no one better than you, you can become, I don't know, maybe lose that momentum and drive. What happened for me was, as you rightfully say, you find yourself in this environment. There are other exceptional students who are doing very well, and it pushes you even more, because now it's I look at it almost like, if you consider any sport or training, in order for you to be the best, you have to play against the best. And only when you excel against the best, then you can consider yourself, really something special. Otherwise, if you're just excelling and the competition is not up to par, then you can't say that. So for me, it was very inspiring, and I realized hard work, consistency, and those were my mottos. I never thought, and even now, I don't think of myself as someone who's like clever or brilliant. I consider myself a hard worker. And I always believe, at the end of the day, hard work and consistency is what's going to show in the end. I remember in my medical school days, for example, generally Fridays, most of the students, it's, let your head down time, go to the movies, things like that. For me, that was consolidation time. What did we learn in the week? Review my summaries, what's happening next week. So I use that time strategically for that. And for a long time, for years, I did that. I would only reward myself to go to the movies in our local mall here called Rosebank after our end of block assessments or exams. Then I would, that was that weekend, or that day was a timeout day. We've done an exam, we're done, or a test. I can go and relax. But I always looked for these opportunities where I could work and use my time wisely. So I was very much aware that we're doing a lot of work. It's a lot of subjects. It's a very competitive speciality. Everyone here is here by their gifts, their hard work. And so I never took it lightly. And I always felt, privileged, that here I am and let me maximize that. So, yeah, so it was actually very inspiring. And I think it even motivated me to do more. And I think you need that in life as well, when you have others around you whom you can see their progress and not feel, oh, they're doing so well, but rather they're inspiring you as well to say, hey, if so and so can achieve this, I can also achieve it. Let me work harder. What do I need to do? Yeah.
Yeah. And for young doctors, and that is an area that is very close to my heart more recently, how to inspire them with the changing landscape, the health landscape. I think, it's a bit challenging for young doctors at the moment to see a future in medicine and stay in medicine the way you and I have for many, many years. How would you inspire somebody now who's just starting off with the internship, maybe even at Chris Hani Baragwanath
Yeah.
Hospital, about of course, there will be challenges. That's not to say the medical profession anywhere in the world
Yeah.
is not all rosy, but how would you inspire them in terms of saying to them, if this is your calling, this
Yeah.
is where you should be?
Yeah.
What would you say?
Yeah. So I think it starts there, because I think what's happening now, many individuals see medicine as it's job security, it's potentially lucrative, and often they look at us from the outside and they don't know the other side, the long hours, the studying, the fact that when you graduate you'll be starting as an intern, and that whole journey, and it's a very long journey. So and if you look at your other counterparts, engineers, lawyers, accountants, by that time they would have graduated, they'll be working, they'll be earning a reasonable salary, really doing well for themselves. So it really starts there to say, why am I actually doing this? Am I really passionate? Do I love people? Do I love helping people? Am I determined to be a solution to the health problems that exist? So once that mindset is set and you are committed to that, definitely the journey is fulfilling. There's nothing more rewarding than saving a life, someone that you knew or had a very poor prognosis, or you resuscitated and you brought them back and you've given them a chance. And then and these patients recognizing that as well, and they see you as the individual. You are that angel that actually delivered them from that sickness or suffering or disease. So it's definitely fulfilling. And I think that if that's where your core is at, you are on the right track, and continue and pursue it. There's a lot of opportunities. There are a lot of unmet needs that still need to be resolved from whichever speciality, if one decides to subspecialize, or even just from a general public health perspective. And we need more doctors as well to be willing to raise up their hands, to get involved and to take up space in decision making, in policy making. So even if you may be a generalist and you are there for the right reason and you're passionate, your insights, your contribution is desperately needed. So that's what I would say to them. Don't be deterred by the struggles. It is an uphill. And as you go through the journey, I think it's also introducing you, especially in our setting in South Africa, of the challenges that exist. And there are questions that you'll put to yourself that, but why are things this way? Why don't we change this? Why don't we do things in a better way? And my answer to you is that yes, things can be better, but you are the answer we're waiting for. So continue and pursue that journey.
Oh, wow. Thank you for that. And the reminder about the privilege that it is to be a doctor, and the reward that comes with it. As you've said, Sometimes it's just a thank you, doctor, you saved my life. That really centers you again and can refocus you on your personal mission. I really appreciate that very, very profound reminder. So you now have given us some ideas also about the early, at that time, Dr. Tsabedze, is an intern, just doing what he does, which is to do his very best. You complete your community service, and then what happens next?
Yeah, so in fact, I went through a rough time during community service because I'd worked in Barra for 2 years back to back. And I actually felt like I've burnt out. I felt, wow, I've given everything. Can I really manage this? Because one thing that's different from the academia, in academia, you learn for an exam, you learn hard, you put in the hours, the exam comes, the exam ends, then you breathe. In clinical practice, that doesn't happen. You constantly, there's a constant demand. There's another patient. There's another person who needs help. And when you are that person, you end up giving everything. And then eventually, I think at that stage, came ComServe. I was like, whew, can I really do this forever? So it already confirmed one thing. Already when I started internship, I came to a conclusion. I need to specialize. So that was that, because I said to myself, I can't be always on the ground after hours every fourth day or fifth day. I'd rather be a consultant. I do post-intake ward rounds. I review complex cases. So I knew I had to specialize. But also at that time, now with my clinical overwhelming, that's when an idea came to mind to say, should I do public health? And I remember telling my then chief of unit, Prof. Roy Shires, that, I'm thinking of pursuing public health. And to his dismay, he was like, no, I really don't think that you need to do that. I'm going to speak to the head of department, Professor Ken Huddle. I'm going to tell him that I've got this medical officer who's very promising, and you just give me your CV and I'll even write a motivation letter for you. So I really didn't have to do much. I did apply for the registrarship post in public health at WITS. However, the interviews came, so I was shortlisted. I was invited to the registrar interviews for internal medicine. Lo and behold, I got the job offer, and I stalled with sending in my acceptance letter, hoping public health would respond. And eventually, I remember it was a Friday, the secretary at the department called, Dr. Tsabedze, we're waiting for your confirmation. Are you accepting the registrar offer? So I'm like, yes, I accept the offer. And then about a week later or two, public health calls, we're inviting you for interviews. And I told them, you know what? I've already committed. I've accepted an offer here. So yeah, you can basically count me out. And that was my journey, and I guess now looking back, I'm glad I stayed in clinical medicine, because at the time I realized now that, it was probably burnout I was going through. And even where I am now, I'm still convinced I'm walking in that calling specifically of what I'm meant to be doing. So I don't have regrets with pursuing subspecializing in internal medicine and eventually in cardiology. But yeah, at that time I did have that moment of, will I do this forever? Should I not do public health and get a normal 8-hour job from 8 to 4 and no one calls me at night, etc., etc. But yeah, so those thoughts did come to mind.
What a loss for public health. What a loss for public health. But you touched on two areas that I want to just pursue with you. The first was, the topic of stress and burnout. And as I mentioned to you when we talked a little bit earlier on, I've been so encouraged by what I'm seeing here in the US, the increasing recognition that as doctors, we also get stress and burnout, and we need support for that. And what is particularly valuable is the support from our peers, people who understand, like you've said, being at the hospital every 5 days, 48, 72 hours in hospital is not normal.
Yeah.
So you need that kind of understanding that certain conditions, especially, can be aggravated also by working in a resource limited environment like
Yeah.
you and I come from, where now you also have this additional trauma of not being able to help patients the way that you've been trained to help patients because
Yeah.
of limited resources. How do you manage that? What are your thoughts around how the system, and especially someone like yourself who's in leadership position,
Yeah.
you and having been through what you've been through yourself and experienced those episodes, as we all have, I'm sure, as doctors. What are your thoughts around what could be done now
Yeah.
in the medical community, especially for young doctors, but even for seasoned doctors like yourself, around stress and burnout?
So burnout is a big issue. And I think the first part is acknowledging it. And when you're dealing with doctors and the health profession sector, it's inevitable. In fact, I often wonder that if I look at other similar professions like the military service, the paramedics, these issues are constantly being checked. The police service as well, where now and again, as a normal routine, they have policy where each staff member has to check in with a psychologist, where they are actively screening for this. So I think that's definitely something highly commendable. And even in our system, we probably need such mechanisms to be put in place, where you don't need an individual to actually raise their hand to say, I'm drowning. Because also what happens with that is when you are in a highly competitive, high performance environment, raising a hand to say, I'm drowning is also seen as some sort of a weakness, sadly. So I think a lot of colleagues just keep on going, keep on going. And I've been there as well myself, as I've highlighted already in my internship community service years. I just gave. And my response was thinking maybe I need to change my career trajectory. So I really believe that there have to be systems in place, and not just work related hours or control, because the Health Professions Council, for example, has policy that says interns should only work certain amount of hours, doctors should only work a certain amount of hours. And it's there in writing, but often the implementation is the challenge. And in a resource constrained setting where we prize a lot of the dedication and hard work from the doctors, which at the time is fulfilling, but the harm is that those doctors are causing to themselves may probably only manifest later on. So I would actually recommend or suggest a system where these things are routinely put in place, maybe at every 3 months, 6 months. Every healthcare professional goes through this review process with clinical psychologists to look for these signs of stress, burning out. The onus is often put then on, currently in our setting, on the heads of departments. But even with ourselves, first I wonder, for example, would I consider myself an expert to identify early signs of burnout from my colleagues? And probably not. I'll identify someone who was performing well, who's suddenly not performing or having a high output as they used to. But there are those who will continue and self-harm doing that just for the sake of the job is done. We've delivered on the mandate. So it definitely is a serious issue that happens. And in fact, it's even harder when you are a high performing individual. And we've sadly, in our environment, for example, we have both medical students as well as doctors who are specializing, and even physicians who are subspecializing in our environment. And now and again, it's not uncommon that once a year or twice a year you hear of someone committing suicide, and it's very sad. And you ask yourself, did we not fail those individuals? They already earned the right to be there. It means they've done well, they've got good grades, they are hardworking, they are gifted. But have we looked out for them and made sure they don't harm themselves, where they're now finding themselves in a scenario where they're feeling overwhelmed and there's no way forward? And as I said, it's often difficult if you are a high achiever and a high performer to then raise your hand and to say, wait a minute, I'm not coping. You've given me too much. I need to take time out, etc. So it's very, very, very important aspect that needs to be further engaged and probably better managed at a systems level, not even where individuals cry out for help, but having systems in place. And I really look at our profession very similar to, as I said, the paramedics, the military, the police, where these things seem to be in place out of awareness of post-traumatic stress and other challenges. And this comes also into play where one can look into burnout and stress that may be evolving.
Yeah, very well put, Prof, and very, very important for the integrity of our mental health. And I think it's something that we often overlook
Yep.
for ourselves. You know, a lot of medical doctors are advocates for mental health provision and services for their patients because they put their patients first, often
Yes.
neglecting their own
Yep.
mental health needs. So I'm really appreciating the emphasis that you've put also on the system and the support around the doctor and not blaming the doctor for their response to the environment that they are in. Thank you so much for that. Which also brings me to something that you touched on briefly around mentors and mentorship. You'd mentioned that your introduction to internal medicine was facilitated or supported by another doctor. Your thoughts on mentorship? Who have been your mentors throughout your medical journey, in your personal and your professional life, that have really played a crucial role for you and have impacted on your life?
People that I can say often I would bounce ideas or talk to or guide me in my journey often was my father. He never had the privilege of going to do postgraduate studies and training, so he was very much passionate about education. And whenever I would, indicate I want to now do this or study this, it was always met with support and encouragement, which just geared me forward. And I think even the time when I finished my physician training and now I was stuck, I was thinking, what should I do? Am I going to be a cardiologist or a nephrologist? Those are the choices that I had at the time. And I think probably what also helped me, he at that stage, I remember during my registrarship time, he complicated with complete heart block, well, second degree heart block. It's now complete heart block, but he needed a pacemaker. And so there was already this nudge. Oh, yes, someone I know who already has benefited from cardiology services. And, that also inspired me. But I would say my father, then individuals, some of the key individuals who were, the heads of departments and some of my heads of units. I remember, for example, as a registrar, asking one of the heads of the units at Chris Hani Baragwanath Hospital. I don't know if you may know him, Professor Pabu, Tux Pabu. He was a physician who was an exceptional neurologist, and he headed one of the units. And I asked him at the time, I said to him, Prof, looking where you are now, do you have any regrets? So I always had that again foresight where I would always say to myself, this is the journey that I'm on. It's going to lead me to that destination there. Who's already in that destination? When I look at them, what are the issues or challenges? Would I be happy if I arrived to that level, or do I want more? And often I would always have this resounding feeling of, I want more. Fine, now I'm a physician, but I want more. I want to specialize. And now here I am, I'm a cardiologist. I want more. I don't want to go to congresses and attend. I want to go there to present work. I want to tell the African story. So there's always been that reflection and engagement with my seniors as well to say, if they had another take, what could they do differently? But in terms of a formal mentor, like someone that I would set up meetings to actually engage them and tell them my story, they almost pep talk me. I did get that from, in fact, Prof. Pettifor. When I did my Carnegie Fellowship, Prof. Pettifor was overseeing the Carnegie Fellows, and he was actually engaging us quite a lot on a regular basis in terms of being a well-rounded clinician scientist, still teaching students, still doing research, still publishing, how to balance. So he was one of the individuals that I think who was a bit more structured and formal. But at every point, I always never ran away from an opportunity to ask those questions from my seniors to say, are you satisfied? And if you could have another take, what could you do? And then I would take, the pearls from those answers and internalize them and reflect on myself to say, what can I do now? How do I position myself so that when I arrive there, I feel better fulfilled with that journey? Yeah.
And that's the beauty I always share also with colleagues about medicine. I've never felt at any point that I cannot reach out to any doctor anywhere in the world and just ask for information and ask for guidance and pose the questions that you're asking. But another source of mentorship, if I can put it that way, are patients themselves. You've shared a bit about how your father also inspired your journey to cardiology. Do you have any stories or insights to share with us about the impact that patients have had on you
Yeah.
and how you view the world? If you can share that with us.
Yeah. It's huge because there are obviously those immediate moments when you resuscitate a patient or treat them, make a diagnosis, they didn't know what they have, and they do well. And even now, some of the patients that I get to see are special referrals. They are like problem cases where individuals are struggling, they're symptomatic, and no one seems to really scratch their heads hard enough to figure out what's what here or how do we approach this. So, and often when I've had those kind of patients, they don't want to leave. There's a lady, I won't mention her name. She's even in the US, she's in Washington. She will literally, every time she's coming back to South Africa, she will call, make an appointment to say, I'm coming to South Africa. Please, can you fit me in? I want you to see me and let's do a follow up. So that really inspires one. You almost wonder, you're in the USA. Why are you still coming to a South African doctor? It's amazing. But where I really got a huge sense of the unmet needs that exist and how patients are so dependent and want us to help them was the cohort I collected. So my PhD research was on diagnosing or trying to find out the genetic abnormalities that cause heart failure of unknown origin. So most of our African patients with cardiac disease or heart failure typically present and they don't have known risk factors. We call that idiopathic dilated cardiomyopathy. And so our thinking at the time, our hypothesis was that this is most likely a genetic mutation that it's being carried in the community or a polymorphism that's conferring this risk, additional risk. So that's what we sought out to do. And almost every single one of those patients, and the way that our study design was, we found the index patient who has the disease, and then we invited their entire family that we could get access to. And we screened them. We did echoes, imaging studies. They took their bloods for genetic analysis as well. And the way they are so engaged and appreciative, and they want to know what we have found. We've already published some of the clinical data, but sadly, because in Africa we don't have genetic reference populations. Most of the available gene reference populations are from Europe and Caucasian European countries, and we don't have an African normal gene reference. And that was something that I also learned by doing this kind of work, where now we wanted to present our findings, but we wanted to be confident that this is indeed pathological. So those patients, we've journeyed with them. Even today, if they come to the hospital, they will want to come to the office to greet me. It's almost like there's a relationship that we have with them. And yet it all started from a research project. And also they're looking after themselves now even more so than before. So it's almost like they are inspired and encouraged to even take better health of themselves and their families.
Oh, such a wonderful story. And that's exactly what gets us up in the morning, right? I've got a couple more questions, Prof, before we close off. The first one is really around leadership.
Yes.
And when we talked a bit earlier, I shared my own experiences around being in leadership roles and how I had felt that the medical degree doesn't necessarily
Yeah.
give you all the tools for leadership. How have you navigated leadership as a doctor? And especially if you could add some words of encouragement or advice for doctors that aspire to be in leadership
Yeah.
roles.
Yeah. So definitely our degree was pretty much training you to, diagnose diseases and manage diseases, treat patients well. But you were not put in a position where you have to now lead an organization, have a mission and a vision, have strategy, outline objectives, review what are your KPIs, how you're going to monitor those, etc. So all that kind of lingo wasn't routine in our medical training, and it wasn't examinable. So even with myself, as I went through realizing the challenges our health system has, one of the key things that came up was we need better health system leaders. And I immediately also saw the inadequacy in myself, and I often wondered, and sometimes I say, to individuals at a dinner table that, if I can think of certain things and ideas and I'm not even the expert, why aren't the experts doing the right things and getting it done? So I actually learned again that often the people who we think are experts need a lot of support. They need a lot of upskilling themselves. And so one of the things that I did is I actually independently, I remember when I took that research break, taking my fellowship, I wanted to maximize on a lot of things. So one of the things I did, I formally enrolled in at the Wits Language School, where I did, for example, it was a full year's program on public speaking, report writing, communication, and those are all the little soft skills that later on they refined what I had learned or what I knew I had to improve on, but even positioned me better. And even now, one of the things that I've done is attend intentionally into leadership courses offered by the institution. And I'm also on a journey where I want to enroll on an MBA and even an MPH for that matter, because again, I treat patients individually. I see the need that the health system needs to be treated. We need better public health policy and we need better managers. But I do realize the inadequacies that these are skills that are needed, that one needs to empower themselves with. So definitely, I think leadership is important. Equip yourself and get mentors. Look at other leaders that exemplify the kind of leadership style that you want. Engage them and invite them. And something I never did as a youngster, but now it's happening a lot to me. I'm getting a lot of interns, a lot of ComServe doctors reaching out, asking me, "Will you mentor me? Will you?" And I'm stunned, because I'm thinking, okay, what do you really would you like me to do? But they seeing what I'm doing or what I'm pursuing, and it resonates with them, and they want to learn it. But definitely, I think also where we're sitting in our curriculum reviews and reforms, we are seeing the need to start implementing these programs in. And then also now being in leadership in our societies, one of the things that we felt we may not be paying our volunteers, the exco members, the individuals who run these societies a salary per se, but what value add can we give them? And one of the value adds that we've seen is perhaps we could do such things where we arrange leadership workshops, mentorship, work-life balance, stress management, being resilient, etc., where it's not necessarily a monetary payment, but we're adding value so that they can also feel I've contributed into the society organization, but I've also received something so invaluable. I also attended, for example, what comes to mind, at WITS, there's a program, it's also a year program. It's called Early Career Academic Development Program. It basically sets the scene this is where you are. If you want to grow to be a professor, to be this, these are the things that you need to achieve. It's not just about your research alone. It's about the community engagement. It's about networking with colleagues. It's about building a global brand, so that your peers locally and internationally recognize you and see you as someone who is a thought leader. So all of these mechanisms and support structures, they do exist. But often I think when one isn't curious or have that inquiring mind, you can find yourself almost stuck. But it's when you start thinking bigger, then these roles come about. Then also something we were chatting about earlier, joining being a board member in other companies or other NPOs or NGOs. Those are opportunities that also exist where you then harness and you get exposed into that environment. The same way that you grow from being an intern to a mature medical officer to a registrar, even in those leadership spaces, you then get exposed and almost inducted into it and then grow. But you have to raise your hand up, get into committees that the institution has, get into task teams that are there, and then contribute. Yeah.
And a perfect place to end this conversation. I know we could talk for a very, very long time, and so much to learn from you, Prof. Tsabedze. I think it's really just to appreciate my own personal learnings from you. As I've said, you really inspired me looking at another Black professional in the situation that I was in, which of course was a very good situation, but seeing Black excellence, the way that I wanted to see it, delivering on time, every time with the highest standard.
Wow.
It was really a great source of inspiration for me. So I also want to thank you for that personal experience. Prof. Nqoba Tsabedze, a key opinion leader, international expert and cardiologist, international thought leader, and Professor Black Excellence. Thank you so much for your time and joining me today.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Nondumiso, for having me. And I guess just a closing comment to say, sometimes it's what others see us doing. So in our work, in the manner we carry ourselves, there are many, many more that we inspire that we're not even aware of. But we are communicating and, giving them that encouragement to continue to go on. So thank you for having me. And I hope your listeners will enjoy this podcast and they find some inspiration that they too can become Professor of Black Excellence.
I'm sure. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
And that wraps up another insightful episode of Doctors of the Baobab. I hope you found today's discussion both enlightening and empowering. Before we part ways, I want to extend a heartfelt invitation to the audience. If you are a doctor and you've been inspired by what you've heard today and you're ready to take action towards positive change in your life, consider working with me, your host, Dr. Nondumiso Makhunga-Stevenson, as your personal life coach. You can email me to learn more about my coaching services and how we can embark on a transformative journey together. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode filled with valuable insights and strategies for personal growth. Sharing is caring, so if you know someone who could benefit from our discussions, be sure to spread the word and encourage them to tune in. And let's stay connected beyond the podcast. Follow us on all social media platforms, including LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. Join the conversation, share your thoughts, and connect with like-minded individuals who are also on a journey towards living their best lives. Thank you for tuning in today. Remember, every small step you take towards your goals is a victory worth celebrating. Until next time, keep striving, keep growing, and keep shining bright. Doctors of the Baobab, where medicine meets motivation.